Hello and welcome to another Direct Mobiles test. Today we're putting video under the microscope and we're looking at the Samsung Galaxy S8 and the brand new iPhone X. So let's get started. We've developed a number of tests here to see which of these phones is the better performer, and we're going to start off by taking a look at that much used feature, the front-facing camera.
Okay, so here we are walking around outside. It's about 1,000,000 degrees below zero. I might be exaggerating there, but this is a good test. The light is not very good out here, so hopefully this will give you an idea about how these front-facing selfie cameras perform. I can't look at both at the same time, and I've got to keep an eye on the ground because it's extremely muddy, as you can see. Let's give a little check here to the exposure. They're both looking pretty good to me here. Falling over.
So some interesting results here. I really like the picture quality from the Samsung S8. I think it looks better. I like the colours a lot more. The iPhone X is good, but it seems a little bit more washed out, perhaps not as nice looking. However, the audio from the iPhone X is better, I think, much clearer. Okay then, onto the rear camera at 1080p, 30 frames a second. Now I do want to point out the iPhone X can do 4K at 60 frames a second. The S8 can do 4K as well, but only at 30 frames a second. So let's start with this 1080p test and see which we prefer. Immediately, I think it's quite obvious that the image stabilization on the S8 is slightly better. The iPhone isn't bad, but you can definitely see that it's moving around more. The S8's smoothing that out, making it slightly easier on the eye. The colours are also completely different. I feel like the iPhone might be a little bit closer to reality, but I can also see that people would prefer the S8. I think that's stylistically maybe a more familiar thing, and yes, that was a pig out for a walk. Okay, let's take a look at 4K, 30 frames a second.
These cameras support 4K 30, but only the iPhone X supports 4K 60. Now, obviously, I'm going to shoot both of these in 4K 30. I'll be downsizing them in the video to 1080p, but it still gives you an idea about the detail captured on the higher settings.
Okay, so looking at this footage is quite interesting, actually. You'll notice that the iPhone X seems to have much better dynamic range. There's more sort of colour detail in that image. But it's worth saying that both of these cameras perform really well, especially when it comes to autofocus. Note how that has locked on immediately there to the foreground, having come from an infinity locked shot on these. So that's done really well. I'd say the iPhone X actually looks slightly more impressive at this resolution, but the S8 is still a very, very good performer. Okay, time to do some slow motion testing now. This is a bit of fun. Both of these cameras can record at 240 frames a second. However, the S8 will only do that at 720p, the iPhone at 1080p. Here, though, I've resized the videos to be the same size, so look for a bit more detail on that iPhone on the right. What you'll also notice here, of course, is that the S8 is underexposing this quite badly. There's a lot more detail in the sky on the iPhone version, so I sort of prefer that one. There's also a massive difference in how these phones give you the video. The iPhone, for example, will export the clip already slowed down for you, but you can control which bits of it have slow motion applied. The S8, on the other hand, will output the clip at a full 240 frames a second, and it's up to you then to tweak that video to however you want it to look in the final version. But that's quite a flexible way of doing it. Overall, though, I think I'd say the iPhone X is the better performer here. That extra resolution will be really useful. Plus, you've got the advantage of having that zoom lens, which you can use for slow motion as well. However you look at it, though, both of these cameras produce pretty amazing slow motion results that a few years ago would only have been possible with professional equipment that costs tens of thousands of pounds. So, in conclusion then, I would say that it's surprising how good the Samsung Galaxy S8 holds up against the iPhone X. There are areas where the iPhone X wins out, but I would say that overall the Samsung Galaxy S8 is a really strong contender, especially if you consider that it's a slightly more affordable phone. Whichever phone you end up getting, you can get it from Direct Mobiles.